Hello mga ka-lovely! Welcome back to my channel, Lovely Day with Belle, Tutorial and Travel. And in this video, I'm going to share with you my actual MOV for RPMS Objective number 10, Prompt 1. Okay, and this is all about the teacher reflection form for Master Teacher 1 to 4 or the Highly Proficient Teacher.
I hope you consider subscribing my channel. Maraming salamat po.
But before that, let's read first the directions. Reflect on your attainment of the RPMS objective by answering the questions or prompts provided. Use any local or official language that you are comfortable with. Use extra sheets if needed. Please limit your response to 500 words. The objective: develop and apply teaching strategies to address effectively the needs of learners from indigenous groups. Then prompt number 1. Leo and Margarito belong to an indigenous group of people called the Tiboli tribe. Tiboli is one of the major Lumad ethno-linguistic groups in the southern part of the country. Their culture is richly connected and inspired by nature, with dances that mimic from actions of animals and a variety of music and songs. Leo and Margarito's families have migrated to the lowlands due to conflicts related to their ancestral domain. They are the only indigenous people in your class of 45 students. Having a different culture from the rest of the class has affected their sense of self and how they relate to others. So here are the 2 items that we are going to do. Do the following. In the context of addressing the needs of learners from indigenous groups, what teaching strategy will you develop and use in your lesson to affirm and strengthen their indigenous cultural identity? Write your reflections in this form. Then number 2, based on your reflection, design a learning action cell or LAC plan to assist your colleagues in adapting and using culturally appropriate teaching strategies for learners from indigenous groups. Then attach your LAC plan here. Okay, so number 1, ayun po ang ating gagawa ng reflection. So, mamimili tayo ng teaching strategy para sa ating mga indigenous learners to strengthen their cultural identity. Yan, dyan lang po iinog ang ating reflection. And here is my reflection for item number 1. Okay? When teaching all students regardless of their cultural identification, it is important that the teaching strategies used are relevant and effective for the students. For engaged learning to occur, the educational experiences provided must be directed toward achieving learning objectives and outcomes. Indigenous students such as Leo and Margarito may engage in learning in a variety of ways, requiring the development of strategies that are effective in teaching. As a teacher, I will provide my indigenous students with more engaging activities connected to their culture, like dancing and do some action songs that allow them to do body movements that might stimulate their interest and participation and encourage them to use prior knowledge to contribute to group discussions, which provides a foundation for learning. I will focus on developing respectful, constructive, and productive relationships with my indigenous students in the classroom and somehow give them the opportunity to be involved in all activities sa a regular student without discrimination. Develop the lesson while fostering their cultural identity and psychosocial well-being. This will help me teach not only to indigenous students but also to non-indigenous students about IP's culture and issues. Indigenous students can be advocates for effective teacher practice. However, it is important to ensure that all students are treated as individuals with unique educational needs rather than grouping students into learning paths based on their cultural identity. I must set high expectations for my students and foster a positive image of IPs in the classroom, as well as employ specific strategies that may be effective in teaching indigenous students like Tiboli. High expectations relationship of indigenous students and creating an environment of positive affect relationships with IPs in the classroom and school community. I must ensure that indigenous students do not conform to the negative stereotypes that are frequently presented to them. These two goals necessitates positive and productive relationships. In order for meaningful learning to occur, students must feel engaged and connected to their school community. Indigenous students frequently prefer to achieve success in small groups rather than large groups. This will allow the student to succeed without fear of failing in front of their peers. It is important to establish a trusting and respectful relationship with indigenous students by regularly checking in on them and letting them know how they are a valued member of the class and the school community. Okay? So, dito ko kinuha yung aking mga inilagay dyan. Furthermore, if education is distinct in that it frequently employs approaches that differ from those employed in traditional schooling, the significance of emphasizing indigenous knowledge, skills, customs, and values is recognized and implemented. It is important to comprehend the world through the perspective of indigenous children in order to properly teach them. Learning may be relevant and have lifelong worth only when connections are created between new material being provided and a child's known way of life. Even if educational improvements are designed to benefit their community, all initiatives must preserve their IP identity. Okay, so every child who enters our classroom or school community deserves an education. And as a teacher, it is our responsibility to find ways to engage them in their learning and combine classroom learning with cultural education. So for indigenous individuals are a little bit different compared to others, for they value their culture and they take it with them wherever they go. So in conclusion, we should respect our differences. Ayan. So ganun lang po kasimple ang aking reflection for Objective 10, prompt number 1. And i-share ko rin po sa inyo ang aking lock plan. Okay, so ito na yung aking attachment doon sa Objective 10, prompt number 1. Ang number 2 item doon is gagawa tayo ng lock plan. So ito yung aking attachment doon na lock plan. Ilagyan ko lang ng highlight itong TRF Objective number 10, prompt 1 and 2. Ibig sabihin, nag-discuss ako. I-discuss ko sa kanila ang anong meron sa Objective number 10. No? Yan, sa aking colleagues. Then, siyempre, diniscuss ko doon kung ano yung teaching strategies na ginamit ko, yung aking lesson plan. Pinakita ko rin sa kanila yung example ng plan ko para masundan nila kung anong dapat nilang gawin doon. Okay, so ito lang po ang aking mai-share sa inyo for this video. I hope you like it. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye!